Okay, so what I'm going to do today is talk a little bit about the history and motivations for this update, uh, go over quickly what the updates are, and also discuss a bit about what this means going forward. Now, starting off, just going to give a little bit of the context of this. As we know about the built asset sector, it is renowned for the fact that it's open and unambiguous, it's very efficient, and people are always seeking that win-win solution. Okay, maybe not. But until the day that that slide is true and that is true, what we do need to do is throughout our sector is how do we understand what is the effect of all these new technologies and processes that are coming along? How can we effectively and efficiently communicate to each other? What are the things that we need? What do we want? How do we know that the people that we work with, especially as we start working more and more internationally and not just with our local teams, how do we know that they actually are qualified and know what they're talking about? Well, one of the answers to that is Building Smart Professional Certification. So what buildingSMART internationally is an international body to help build consensus and help build these programs and solutions for a lot of the challenges that the built asset sector is facing in terms of certification. It's a framework that's been created to help people demonstrate their knowledge and their qualifications and their dedication to the principles of open BIM. Now, this certification program was first launched around spring of 2021. Uh, it's a learning outcome framework and a body of knowledge that's based on international consensus. It's based around the principles of international standards wherever possible. Where international standards don't exist, national standards are used. Where those national standards are not available, it's really a case of what is international best practice. It consists of 5 core modules that are common to anyone who takes it anywhere in the world. And there's also a 6th module that is available for national chapters to discuss things that are specific to their region. So, for example, buildingSMART Germany, if you took a course there, you would have that same 5 core modules, probably offered in German, although there are providers there who offer it in English, that would have the same content in the first 5 modules, and there would be a 6th module that would be about what is specific to Germany or to Austria or to the UK. Right now, buildingSMART in the US is working on a US module that will be what is specific to US or possibly to North America, looking at sort of the US and Canadian context, because there are a lot of similarities there. There's some differences, but there are a lot of similarities. In that time, there are over 190 registered training providers. It's offered in 25 different countries, and so far to date, in that 4 years, 20,000 individuals have been certified. I understand that some of the people on this program have been certified and are looking to see what the updates are. There's probably some people who are looking at, do I want to become certified? There's probably some people who are looking at saying, do I want my people to get certified, or do I want to insist that people I work with are certified? Okay, so if the program is so effective and working so well, why do we need to update it? Why was that? Well, the first thing is the intent was always to periodically review and update the program. Um, I'm sure people have seen certification programs that have not been updated for 10 years, and it makes you wonder, is this information still valid? Is it still relevant? We wanted to make sure with this program that we never faced that, so we always would periodically review it and update the program. Part of that is making sure that the certification is up to date, making sure the material is recent, that we're using, if we're referring to things based on international standards, it's the most recent version of the international standard, making sure that the learning outcomes are at a consistent level. And also making sure that the material is a good foundation for management and practitioner certification. One of the key things about the foundation is that it serves as a core basis, a core platform for future learning and future training and future communication. So that if you're taking a management course, that you know you have the knowledge ready to go into it to start. We also took some of the feedback from participants and providers in terms of how to improve it. One of the feedbacks that we got was that some of the material in the foundation course was a little too technical, and that some people felt that some of the certification questions may have multiple correct answers. Now, I would push back on that a little bit and say, for every question, there is one correct answer, but some people said, well, you look at some of these other answers, and from a certain perspective, they might be conceived to be correct. So we want to try to eliminate those to eliminate any ambiguity in terms of answers. The process that we used was first we had a small team that I primarily led to just review the existing body of knowledge, to look at how information flowed throughout it. Strictly speaking, it was not a requirement for any training providers to present the material sequentially. If they felt that the material would be better presented asequentially, or starting off with a different, with a section 2 first section 1, that would be fine. But we did find that a lot of practitioners liked to present the material module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4, module 5, and going on. And so we tried to facilitate that with how the information flowed. I wanted to make sure that the contents were still accurate, that they were still timely, and that if needed, new material was added. 4 years is a long time in the world, and things change, and we wanted to make sure that things were as up to date as possible. Once that body of knowledge was updated, it was taken back to an international committee to get international consensus, to make sure that people agreed with the changes and that it was approved by buildingSMART International and by the various chapters of buildingSMART, that they would be willing to endorse it. We then went ahead and updated the question database to make sure that the questions reflected the updated material. And finally, we released that body of knowledge to training providers. So what I'm going to do now is probably take 10 minutes or so to go over the updated body of knowledge, how things are changed, how things are different, and give you a sense of what is in each module. For some of you'll be familiar with the body of knowledge and what the training looks like. For some people, this may be a bit new to you. So try to cover things kind of for both. So the first module is really about terminology, the benefits of using building information modeling just in general. This section is kind of a generic stage setting section for everybody. Things like, what does building information modeling mean? What are the international definitions of it? What are the core standards internationally around the use of BIM, both from a technology point of view as well as a process point of view? Some people are very familiar with ISO 19650, some people are not. Making sure that everybody who takes the course has a basic understanding of those definitions, things like that. Now, a lot of that is really honestly the same as it was before. A lot of those definitions and things haven't really changed in the last 4 years. Things are still up to date. There was some new terminology added. There was some clarifying material added. But basically, if you took the course 4 years ago and you take a course next year, that first module is going to be very, very similar. The second module is really all about what are the advantages of BIM compared to traditional project delivery. And this is very important, and this is kind of tricky for a lot of ways, because depending on where you are in the world, the level of BIM adoption is either very high or very low. There are some countries that have almost no BIM adoption. There are some countries that it is an ongoing part of everyday work and sort of everyday process. There are some places where it is built into their both local and national building codes that this is how you do things. Um, but what we wanted to do was make sure that everybody, and especially the people who are coming into working on these projects who maybe don't have a familiarity, understand what is BIM, how does it work, how do we use it compared to sort of our traditional projects. Um, in terms of changes and updates, one of the biggest changes is in the past, a lot of times the material is presented as sort of the stick model. If you don't use BIM on a project, these are some of the things that you're missing out on. This is some of the bad things. These are some of the risks that you are facing, be it risks of project failure, economic risks, things like that. Some of the feedback that we got was that yes, that works, but for a lot of people, especially a lot of people new to BIM, they also want to see sort of the positive aspect of it. What are the benefits? So if I do make these changes, what do I get? And also reinforcing the fact that BIM adoption is not an all or nothing thing. You don't just, have to jump into the deep end, that there are benefits to be gained during the adoption process and how to look at that. So we added a lot of clarifying text within this section to help sort of fill in some of the gaps. These are honestly things that a lot of the providers were already doing in their courses. They just weren't part of the international certification process. And we just want to make sure that it's kind of a level field across the world where all of the training providers now are expected to cover some of these gaps. The third section is a very big one, and it's really talking about the process of using BIM. Um, most people know or are familiar with the ISO 19650 series of standards that really describe how you use BIM, starting with an owner operator who sets out the requirements, passes them on to the design team, that passes them on to the construction team, that passes them back to that owner operator for asset use. How does that work? Also, to look at some of the other sections around it, some of the ones that are starting to come online. For example, what is the role of setting up some of these processes? How do you actually do these things? Not at a technical level, not at a technical, how do you set a requirements document, but more at a foundational level. What is a requirements document? What kind of things should you expect to see in it? For people who are familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, um, we're really looking at the knowledge and understanding levels, that core foundational level, that you can have a good conversation with somebody with a shared understanding so that you can start talking about things and learning and sharing information, understand. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're ready to jump in and create a project plan, but you're ready to understand what you should expect in a project plan, that you can work with the people, that hopefully you can set the requirements for a project plan. Continuing on that module 4, and this is really where the big changes from the past start to look forward. Um, Before it was about the need for open and interoperable standards. This is really where open BIM, the idea of those open standards, comes through. A lot of people are familiar with using tools like AutoCAD or SolidWorks that are closed platforms that work very, very well if everybody works within that same ecosystem. But what happens if you want to collaborate with somebody who uses a different software platform, a different ecosystem? How do you do that collaboration? What if you want to work with a supplier or a vendor who doesn't use BIM at all? They're still using CAD. How do they share information with you? So there's a lot of tools and standards to do that. In the past, this section was very technical. It talked about things like what are some of the specific industry foundation classes, IFC standards, and exchange formats. You would see things like what is IFC 2x3 and what is IFC 2x4. And this was a section that we found at a foundational level, people had a lot of challenges with. People who are the practitioners who are doing this as part of their day-to-day work were fine with it. But people like owners and operators, people like project managers who probably aren't the ones opening the software, this material was very technical and it was too technical for what they needed. Um, because what they don't need to know how to create or what exactly is in an IFC 2x4 file. What they really need to know is that there is an open standard exchange format that if you are trying to go between these software systems, that there is a tool to do it. Here is what that tool is called, and here is how to talk to the people who need to be the experts in terms of actually implementing those exchanges, what that really is. So this section had a lot of additions, a lot of revisions. It also introduced a lot of new tools. There has been a lot of technical updates over the last 4 years. The IFC standards, for example, 4 years ago, have been revised. We're looking at different paradigms for how information is going to be exchanged, how you set up these exchange documents and these exchange methodologies. So really the material now is about the what are the exchanges, what is the technology, and less about the how, more about, what does it do, and less about how does it operate. um, what we have done for that as well is to try to future proof it a little bit. A lot of times building smart is creating new standards and new processes that may not be ready for a full learning outcome in terms of certification, but you need to be aware that, hey, this is something coming online. We try to set this up so that those things can be easily adopted. And so instead of having major updates, where there may be a minor update where we can add new content into this as the technology becomes more mature. And finally, the last section is almost completely new. Um, Before this, it had a different title, and it was really talking about the importance of information management. Um, One of the key things about ISO 19650 is that it really is all about the entire life cycle of the built asset, from conception all the way through to eventual disposal, but that the shepherd of that entire asset is recognized to be the owner operator, be them a private sector owner operator, be them a public sector owner operator, but they're going to be the ones who really guide the entire process. And so, and honestly, this is a problem in North America a lot where we tend not to consider that viewpoint of that owner operator when we are looking at the design, the construction process. We look at their budget, we look at their financial setup, but we really don't look at what are their needs, what are their desires, how are they going to be using this. Now, part of that is also because, to a large degree, those owner operators don't have the tools to communicate those needs and those wants in a very specific, actionable way. So one of the things within 19650 is how to do that, how to help those owners operators to provide their needs in a very specific way that designs and constructions can be measured against so that we know the delivered asset and the managed asset actually meets those needs. So one of the things about certification now is how to look at that entire process, how to take their needs, cascade them down, cascade them through the entire process. Part of that is also looking at how do we evaluate life cycle benefits. Also, how do we evaluate information security? Data security is becoming more and more every year a bigger and bigger issue with things. As we get into AI technologies, it's going to be even a bigger issue. How do we ensure that information goes to the right people who need it, but doesn't go to the people who don't need it? And how do we make sure that people are accountable to their own information? So that is all covered within that section now. Again, it's not about how to do it. It's about how to have that conversation, how to have that understanding, how to set things up so that you can. So those are really the updates in the program. I'm not going to, I gave some things. I didn't want to get into the details of the learning outcome framework because honestly, that material, when you go to do your courses, when you talk to your training providers, they're going to really go through and walk you through what is needed and what is there. I just want to give a very general overview for what's in the learning outcome framing the body of knowledge. So what does this mean for the professional certification going forward? Well, right now, the certification is very well tailored to those people delivering content, to delivering designs, to delivering constructions. We want to make sure that the program is accessible to people who are just entering the built asset field. How are they going to be able to use this and get up to speed quickly? We want to make sure that the information is also more relevant to those owners and operators. I'll be honest, I think that those are going to be the greatest source of progress in pushing things forward across the world in the next decade. It's making sure that those owner operators are well educated, well able to talk about what they want and what they're looking for, and also to make sure that the information is relevant to those new project managers who are going to be shepherding these projects from conception to execution. We want to make sure that people who have this certification, that what that certification means is that that person has demonstrated that they have a common understanding based on those international best practices, that that certification means that they have a consistent foundation knowledge for the future learning. So going forward at the international level, there's going to be basically 4 levels of international certification. What I've talked about is the foundation level, which is kind of the core level. There is another program called the entry level. This is really geared at people who have no idea of the built asset sector going at all. In the US and Canada, that might be people at the high school level or the secondary school level who are considering, do they want to work in a trade? Do they want to work as a design professional? Do they want to work as a civil engineer or even as a mechanical engineer? This is learning content that is actually provided by buildingSMART International. There is a certification, very simple. You get your little black badge that you can put forward that says, hey, I understand the basics. It contains all the material that somebody who might be expected, who might be taking the foundation knowledge, would probably have already gotten throughout their career. This gives them that knowledge sort of upfront. There's also the management level of certification, which are knowledge-based uh, material to help people who are in that higher level of responsibility and authority in their career, that are looking at guiding projects that need a deeper understanding of the material, but don't necessarily need the technical level, and the practitioner level, which is for those people who are technically implementing things, who are going to be the ones who are actually opening software, using it. How can they demonstrate that they have that technical certification? There's a couple of URLs for you to look at to get more information, as well as Google and other searches. That is my part of the presentation. I'm going to pass things over to Min, who is going to be talking to you a bit about the management level. So go ahead and take it away, and I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, let me share my screen.
Just to clear up any confusion, we've rearranged the schedule, and Eva, you will be presenting on the management course now.
Yep,
My apologies.
no worries. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, you can see my screen, right?
All good, Eva.
Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the session today. My name is Eva, and I am the Manager of Educational Programs of Strategic Building Innovation, SBI. So we, SBI, is also a registered training provider of the foundation course, as Paul just introduced. So today I would like to briefly introduce another course we offer called Leveraging OpenBIM for Project Management. So as a continuation of the foundation course, we also work with buildingSMART USA chapter to deliver OpenBIM course, which focuses on project management. So it provides an extended level of concepts and principles for the key OpenBIM elements, and also the practical knowledge on how OpenBIM can be leveraged to manage your projects. So basically, we will arrange three-hour live sessions to be led and facilitated by our experienced instructors, who are also will be the authors of the course materials. So upon the successful completion of the course, the participants will be receiving a certificate of completion to be issued by buildingSMART USA chapter and SBI. So on the right-hand side, you can find a sample certificate for your easy reference. So in addition to the lecturing part, we will also offer a variety of engaging guidance and facilitation methods. So this may include, like, for example, interactive in-class exercises and also practical working templates supported by different types of real-world case studies on both building and infrastructure types of projects. So basically, our goal is to ensure that the participants will not only comprehend the definitions of key terminologies, but also learn how to apply and adapt these concepts into their daily work. So basically, we welcome all types of professionals who are involved or who are interested in project management to join our course. And to be more specific, we also welcome professionals who are currently leading or will be leading and the planning and the execution of OpenBIM related, OpenBIM enabled projects. So we also want to clarify here that it is not a prerequisite or requirement to have a complete skill set of the direct project execution before you join our course. So here we just try to share some proposed learning outcomes. So throughout the learning journey, our aim is to help our participants understand the requirements related to OpenBIM implementation, which is also in alignment with internationally recognized standards, for example, ISO 19650, and what may be the methods for measuring project successes, and also the applicable, for example, specifications, tools, like model checking and verification processes, and also the collaboration workflows in project management. So here comes actually my last slide for today's session. So this outlines the course topics and modules. So I think I won't go to detail on this slide, but as a conclusion on my side, our major objective is to help the industry understand how OpenBIM can really transform project management flow. And we will also explore how to integrate industry standards and supporting technologies, as well as how to implement digital collaboration workflows from both theoretical and practical perspectives. So ultimately, we do hope our course will enable professionals to achieve more efficient and effective project outcomes. So here, I guess I will pause here and I will hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Min, for the next part. Thank you.
Thank you. Take the screen. Okay, OpenBIM application course. I am Min, and I am also one of the instructors for this course. I am like Eva with SBI. And this course, like the management course that Eva introduced right before this one, is a course that's provided on a US Building Smart USA chapter level. So it's not an Building Smart international level course. It's a chapter level course. And then the basic idea of this application course was that, first we had this OpenBIM Foundation course, the PCERT course, and the management course, but then that was really about a little bit more about the conceptual background, the contents that are helpful for management and understanding of OpenBIM. So participants go through writings, text diagrams, and learn about the whys and what of the IDM information delivery manual sometimes, and BSCD and CDE, of course IPC, but you don't get to actually use that with tools during those courses. So the idea of this OpenBIM application course is to have hands-on sessions. Of course, there are still, background information that we provide, but maybe like 60% or more of this course will be learning how to use IPC-based software tools. So first, we give a kind of a landscape of the latest commercial OpenBIM tools out there, and brief background of OpenBIM concepts and workflow. Again, the management and PCERT, the foundation course, is not a prerequisite to this course, but we have to give a background about OpenBIM IPC before getting our hands on the software application. So there is that introduction part to this course. But most of the course will be the hands-on session using tools like Solibri and SimpleBIM, which are pretty popular in the market. The target audience, this is really for people who need to use IPC tools on a regular basis, but it's also for people who need to learn and select IPC tools for their teams, as well as for people who may need to develop OpenBIM strategies tied with actual tools for their project or enterprise. And speaking of IPC 4.3, this can be helpful for people who wants to use IPC for infrastructure projects. So recently, AASHTO has published the Information Delivery Manual, and with that, in 2023 and afterwards, there is information delivery specification for projects that do use IPC on an infrastructure project. So there are certain check items or rules, if you will, that you have to implement. And the AASHTO documentation, IDM documentation has that. So using that example and some of the examples of IDS files will be a part of the application course. And another use case in the context of the US chapter is the Transportation Pooled Fund project, Bridges and Structures Pooled Fund project team has developed BSDD, basically Building Smart Data Dictionary. So we will learn about that and demonstrate how that can be used with actual OpenBIM tools that is available today. And first learning outcome, you will learn how to establish rules for checking IPC models, like the AASHTO example that I've mentioned before, and how to update or edit IPC data. So when you have an IPC model, a lot of people tend to think that it's kind of frozen or in an archiving format, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And there are ways to edit IPC data, items, and properties if those information is not correct. So we'll learn about that, and people will also learn how to use IDS, Information Delivery Specification. IDS is a building smart way of establishing rules for IPC. This does not check the geometric parts of it, but it will mostly focus on the non-geometric parts of the IPC model and the quality of that. So IDS will be covered, as well as the separate commercial tools for checking the geometric side of the IPC model. So that will be covered as well. And then how to communicate the result of checking IPC models, like using VCF bin collaboration format, and how to compare different versions of IPC files and models. So that will be covered for the bin coordination part. And the last one is more advanced use of OpenBIM. For a lot of these parts, we won't have a hands-on session, but it will be more likely like a demonstration. So these parts may include the use cases that are for advanced users, like OpenBIM APIs and how to integrate OpenBIM and GIS. COBie is also, OpenBIM standard. So we will cover COBie for operation stage of a project, and those will be mainly demonstration without hands-on sessions. In terms of the schedule, we have 3 sessions. Each session is 3 hours done in a virtual classroom. And for the class to happen, we need a minimum of 6 participants. So we will group them in 6 or more for a session. And once you complete, you will receive a buildingSMART USA certificate of completion for this course. And just a snapshot of the tools in the market. This is an overlay of IPC tools available in the market and OpenBIM workflow. Of course, this is not the full list of the tools available in the market. But these are some of the major ones, and so we will introduce as many IPC tools as possible. But then we will select a couple for a hands-on session. The default is Solibri and SimpleBIM, but if there is a larger group that gives us, incentives or reasons to switch the IPC tools for hands-on part of the course, then that may be possible. So instead of using SimpleBIM and Solibri, if your organization is using ODA or other different IPC-based tools, and has a larger group for this OpenBIM application course, then we should be able to accommodate that as well. So that's a brief summary of the application course. So I will now pass it back to Tony.